You're getting free agent news. Jeff Zilgett from USA Today reports Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will head to Orlando on a 3-year deal. Two-way player, elite defender who has shot 39% or better each of the last 4 seasons. GA, you obviously know this Orlando Magic roster really well. It addresses a need while boosting one of their great strengths, which is their defense.
Yeah, and that's the thing you want to look at when you talk roster construct. You have to understand the identity of your team. Where do we hang our hat? It's on the defensive side of the ball. He's a terrific defender. He can guard multiple positions. He's also really good without the basketball. Great shooter. And so he brings championship experience, right? This guy's won 2 championships as a starter for both the Lakers and the Nuggets. So I think he fits right in with this group. He's going to be a great locker room guy as well. Tremendous work ethic. I think a lot of positives. And I just think it's one of those moves, again, it's not the big flashy move that a lot of Orlando Magic faithful might have liked, but this is the prudent move. This is the one that makes the most sense because it allows you to grow, but it doesn't stunt the growth of your best players. It allows those guys to continue to develop and figure out what their ceilings are. Yep. I think he's a terrific fit for them, and I think he's going to fit in well.
Not a player who needs the ball in his hands to run your offense, and yet will space the floor to allow Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and the rest to do their thing.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a star role player. That may sound counterintuitive, but he is a star in his role.
Perfect sense.
He got a 3-year contract from Orlando. This was a team with the biggest discrepancy. They were second in the league in defensive rating. They were 22nd in offensive rating. They were shooting deficient, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. So he'll space the court. He'll create a lot of room up front for Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and others to operate. You guys made a great point. He doesn't need the ball in his hands that much. He's a catch-and-shoot player, an off-ball cutter, as you see right there. So Orlando, I agree with Greg. This is prudent roster building. This is the kind of move that the New York Knicks have made over the last couple of years as they built out their roster. It's not a star. It doesn't, grab headlines and have people going nuts in terms of ticket sales and all that. But KCP's a winning player. He won the championship in 2020 with the Lakers. He won the championship in 2023 with the Denver Nuggets. And he's valuable in this free agent class. If you're unrestricted, in your prime, and willing to go to a team with significant cap space on the rise like Orlando is, he cashed in, and I'm happy for him. One final aspect of this, Matt, now we're down to 2 teams for Paul George because this is going to take, we haven't seen the levels yet at KCP, but this is going to use up
$66 million for 3 years is what we've just seen.
Okay, so that takes Orlando obviously out of the Paul George sweepstakes.
Yep.
The 3 of us have reported all day we didn't think they were a realistic player. Of the 3, they were clearly third. Now it seems Philly's in the driver's seat. We'll see if the Clippers can come with a last-minute pitch to bridge the gap, but it's down to those 2 teams for the biggest name in this free agent class, Paul George.
And for Denver Nuggets fans who are already lamenting the loss of KCP, this is a deal that Denver could not have done, correct?
No, they just couldn't afford to. With the aprons, with their payroll, we've talked about it, 3 max players, Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon making over $20 million a year. It was just too expensive. That was a great starting 5. But, this is the cost of success in the new NBA, and this is going to become more common. These are the kind of issues that the Celtics may face a year or 2 from now. When your group is successful, people want your players, even your role players, if they can poach them to play a similar role on their team. Orlando has a good team. They have a bunch of guys on rookie-scale contracts, and they have a need for shooting and defense in the backcourt. KCP fits all that, and I thought it was good business by Orlando. They could have done a 4-year deal, but they're going to have Banchero and some of those guys are up for extension now, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, so they need to be careful, and I think they're willing to offer more money in the short term on a 3-year deal than they would have been over a longer-term 4-year deal because they prioritize their flexibility in the future when those guys come off the rookie scale.
And the other aspect of this from Denver, because of how the new collective bargaining agreement has kind of changed the landscape of the league, puts far more pressure on your front office to develop and evaluate talent. Yep. In terms of bringing it, because you're going to have to fill out your roster in significant roles with guys who don't make a lot of money. You're going to have to be able to do that. And so if you're missing on these picks, even though some of these guys have potential and they're not being able to step in right away and win and help you win, you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in playoff-wise. That's why you saw them out in the second round this past season. and their roster as of today is not as good as last year's. And so they're going to have to, if you're the Denver Nuggets, you're going to have to figure out a way to revamp that roster on the fly, or you're going to have to ultimately trade one of your core pieces, a guy like an Eric Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. I wouldn't be surprised if potentially you saw one of those guys get moved, because that's the only other way they're going to be able. You're not going to find what you need on minimum salaries, and your mid-level is probably not going to be as attractive as some others. So that's just something else that they're going to have to consider.
You said something else interesting talking about KCP, is that teams like players who've been successful in other places. How much easier is it for executives to see the value of a player when he's in a winning situation? You know, a lot of it is speculative, right? We see the measurables, we see what a guy has done at some other level, and then you hope you can project that, okay, he'll be this on a contending team, not just a rebuilding team. It's a lot easier to do when you've seen the guy win a championship.
No question about it. In the case of KCP, he's won 2 in the last 5 years, so it means he's flexible. He's able to adapt to different scenarios, playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis in LA, then playing with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic in Denver, playing off of those guys. And the 3-and-D wing is one of the more valuable players in the NBA now. It's what every team wants. You know, teams like Boston and the Knicks in particular, especially re-signing Anunoby, trading for Mikal Bridges, they feel like you can't have too many of those guys. Some teams play 4 and 5 of them at a time.
Yep.
So that's the value of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You can put him out there on the court against those guys, and he can hold his own. Offensively, he keeps them honest because he can make shots from 3, doesn't need the ball a whole lot. And defensively, he guards some of the better, especially the better smaller guards, better 2 guards on the opposing team. So a really valuable role player. And if you're between 6'4" and 6'8", watching at home as a young player, work on your shot and your defense. If you can make it to the NBA, you're going to make a lot of money when you become a free agent.
You know, it also makes the Magic even more switchable, although they're a team that does not switch a lot, which I always admired about them defensively.
I was going to say
but they could do it a little more with
Well,
it.
actually, no, they won't. What they don't do is compromise their defense. So, you know, basketball is all about philosophy. So they don't like to switch, because what happens when you start switching a lot is it not only compromises matchups, but it doesn't allow you to control your defensive backboard, because then you get a lot of cross matches. And so one of their philosophies is that, no, even if that matchup sometimes is not winning, like they may have some success attacking an individual player, but they're not going to compromise their overall defense, because they figure over the course of 48 minutes, we still can win out. You know, that nobody's going to go give them 60 individually, generally speaking. So that's how they approach it. And I think it's been successful for him. And now he gives you the added bonus of shooting, because he's a drop-dead shooter on the perimeter. And I think that also opens up the floor for their playmakers.
So Minnesota was the best defensive team in the league, but Orlando was second. And Greg, you made some great points about them not wanting to switch. And then the Boston Celtics were the 3rd-ranked defensive team in the league, and we saw what they did, especially in the finals against Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Luka in particular, throughout the Western Conference playoffs, Luka and Kyrie, primarily Luka, would get opponents to double and switch and attack matchups they want, or
Boston
get 2 on the ball.
Yeah.
Boston didn't do that. They can, if you can stay home and defend, not switch, not get in rotations, that is huge defensively, and that's what the best teams are doing. And Orlando adds another plug-and-play player, a versatile defender in KCP.
That's one of the things I admired about the Magic defensively, is they do not switch for the most part. They go out of their way to avoid that in a league that is, in my opinion, become way